Free content acts both as a marketing tool and at the same time making it possible for people to have access to important, interesting or amusing content. Timo Henne is a publishing director.
Nature Publishing Group is best known as a publisher of scientific journals. Our most famous title is Nature, our flagship title, which has been published for almost 140 years now. And until 1992 it was our only title. But since then we've launched a series of other journals, some of them Nature branded, some of them not, and now we publish over 80 titles. Nature in print has a circulation of about 60,000 copies. The actual readership of the print journal is something in the region of 10 times that, because there are many library copies and shared copies. The other factor that's important to recognise is that these days most of our readers access the content online. And Nature.com, for example, has something in the region of 2 million registered users. Nature.com, first and foremost, is a delivery channel for us, in the sense of when we first established it back in the 1990s, and around about 1997 we started doing full text online. It was a mechanism for us to distribute the content that we were already distributing in print form. But in recent years we've really tried to go beyond that. That's just a first step. It's an important one, but it doesn't begin to exploit the full power of the web. And so since then, we've been involved in many other activities that are part of Nature.com, or in some cases separate sites, but part of what we consider to be the Nature.com family of websites. The nature of the web is about linking and about interoperability. And so one of the ways that you can make a useful service online and have people come back to your website is by providing useful links out to other people's content. There's a variety of ways in which we make content available. There's a variety of different types of content that we make available free online. So, for example, we have a daily science news service online, and that content is freely available. My knowledge of Creative Commons has really come out of, I suppose, my long-standing engagement and interest in actually the open source software movement. What I like about it is the fact that it provides a sort of standard and clarity to the question of rights that I think previously didn't exist. So whereas before, if you wanted to make content available in a way that allowed people some rights to make use of it that they didn't by default get through copyright, and it was very quick and easy to do that, not only without going to a lawyer, but to do it in a way that everyone understood, or at least everyone who understood Creative Commons knows what it means. Nature Proceedings is a preprint server in which biologists, chemists, people in those sort of fields can upload their work, whether they're early manuscripts that they're about to submit or have just submitted to journals, pre-peer review, or presentations that they've given, or conference papers they've presented. And we, by default, make all of that material available under a Creative Commons attribution license. So the idea is people can take that material, and as long as they cite it, as long as they give proper attribution, they can use that material, and they can create derivative works and so on and so forth. In other cases, so for example with molecular systems biology, we use some slightly more restrictive Creative Commons licenses that don't allow commercial exploitation, and we also, in the case of molecular systems biology, give the author of the paper the discretion as to whether to choose a license that allows or doesn't allow derivative work. So we leave that decision with the author. There is also, in some areas, a PR benefit to be gained by using a Creative Commons license rather than not. But I think even just for purely pragmatic reasons, we'd end up using them, to be honest. When we say we're making content available for free, we are talking about a proportion of content and not all of the content. It's supported by a body of content that we're charging for. At one end of the spectrum, some publishers are undoubtedly, I think, very reactionary, very hostile to change, and have come over in that way, and I think have been incredibly ill-advised in some of the ways that they approach things. It's clear they're in much more of a defensive mode than a progressive mode, if I can put it that way. And I think that does the whole industry a disservice. Given the existence and the rise of the web, so many things change that I think we need to constantly revisit, reassess, and re-justify our own existence. So in the context of scientific databases, we found a way of adding value in that area that actually is very similar to the way we've added value in the print world, which has to do with curation and filtering and improving content and providing contextual content and promoting things. But I also think there are just new and different ways of doing things online. The web is a very different environment from the traditional print world. And I like to think of Nature as a scientific communication company, not as a publisher, partly because I think the word publisher is associated with a somewhat reactionary stance in some context, but also that it's also very much associated with print publishing and with journals in the case of science publishers. So I think, yes, we do need to be more progressive, and yes, we do need to be seen to be more progressive, and that's important for our image and for justifying our own existence. I think there's going to be pressure on that business model in the sense of we will get more and more content available freely online, principally through self-archiving and funder-mandated self-archiving. And so I think the onus will be on the publisher not only to extract value from that content over an embargo period that they may have of 6 months or 12 months or whatever it may be, but also to add sufficient value to the way they're presenting that content online that people would preferentially get it from their website rather than a free online repository. And I think that's going to be a big challenge. I do think also, what we're seeing is many of the new things that we're doing that are free at the point of use, like our databases, like our podcasts, are funded through sponsorship and advertising. For Nature, sponsorship and advertising was already an important part of the mix, but I think as other organisations do more of that, they'll find that that's, in some cases, really the only way of making those things sustainable, which is going to be tougher for organisations that don't already have a sponsorship or advertising unit. Fortunately, we did. But I also think that even as we're doing free online databases and free online podcasts that are sponsored, I think the opportunities are still open for doing paid-for services in all of those kinds of areas, and I think we'll see some of those. I think we'll see, for example, podcasts that people pay for because they're high value add and they're serving a particular niche that's willing to pay for it. Publishers don't see themselves as software companies and therefore don't usually see themselves as providing computer-based functionality for people. And yet I think if you as I do, define yourself as a facilitator of scientific communication and scientific information, you have to start thinking of yourself as providing services, not just information, functionality. So we provide social bookmarking and reference management through to preprint servers, through to online social networking discussions, those kinds of things. And I think at the moment all of those are free at the point of use, and we intend to keep all the functionality that's currently free will continue to be free. But I think there's the opportunity potentially to create them premium services on top of those. And if you look outside the scientific realm to websites like Flickr, which is a photo sharing site, the basic service is free, but then there's a premium functionality. If you want to store lots of photos, you want to have other types of special functionality, you then pay. So this is known as the freemium model, right? So the basic service is free, but then you optionally pay for a premium service. And I think there's options there, and I think that's rather different from the way that publishers, particularly scientific publishers, have operated in the past. Providing a free service and then trying to upsell people, trying to get people then to migrate to a premium service. People still like print as a medium, particularly for more leisurely type of reading, but I think as a delivery mechanism, online will be where it's at and everything will be delivered online, albeit that people will still print off. I think one of the other interesting developments that I hope will come in will be the ability to publish data sets and get credit for that without having to make it part of a paper, and just get credit for the data set in and of itself. Similarly, being able to publish scientific algorithms or software and be able to get credit for that without having to tie it to a paper. Let's recognise that a paper is one way that you can contribute, but there are other ways as well, and people deserve recognition for those. I also hope that we'll get recognition for the kinds of informal but I think very useful activity that you see happening on scientific blogs and wikis and those kinds of things. Finding some way of aggregating it, identifying which scientist has made which contribution where, these sort of micro contributions as it were in lots of different places. They might have posted a comment here, they might have made a contribution to a discussion over there, they might have posted a preprint over here, and aggregating that information and giving them credit then for having made those many small contributions as well as the bigger contributions or that are currently much more visible in terms of their publication. Because publishing a paper in a top journal is an important scientific contribution, but it's by no means the only contribution you can make.
And so we've seen how you can use the web to generate new sources of income and create sustainable business models. There are risks, and there's no established easy guidebook on how to go about it. But after looking at some solutions, you may decide to become part of this growing global phenomenon.